I work at a haunted gas station in Northern New Hampshire and the rules keep me up at night. I never should have opened that door. It was a regular night. The gas station sat alone on the side of a winding, foggy road. I was used to the eerie stillness. The chill in the air cut through my jacket like a knife. I thought I was tough, handling the night shift at this desolate place. But every evening brought whispers that slithered through the darkness, turning mundane tasks into potential horrors. The clumsily placed neon lights flickered, casting ominous shadows. The growl of the wind outside echoed, sounding more like a warning than nature's breath. I stalked the shelves, listening to the relentless ticking of the wall clock as it dragged the hours painfully along. Darkness pooled in every corner, and I could swear that the light barely reached the back of the store. The chill settled deep in my bones. It was more than just the cold. That's when I heard a soft shuffling sound. I froze. My heart raced. I glanced around, expecting to see a customer. But nothing. Just the soft whir of the refrigerator. I tried to shake it off and return to my task. But then came the whispers again. They wrapped around me like a thick fog. Low, incoherent murmurs that sent a shiver racing down my spine. I was alone here, or so I thought. The shelves creaked under the weight of unseen eyes. I could almost feel them, lurking. I reminded myself of the rules: don't linger after hours. Don't ignore the shadows. Don't think you're alone. Each rule was hard-earned, born from the stories of those who worked here before me. Glaring warnings etched in each cracked tile and faded poster. The last attendant, they said, vanished without a trace. I shook my head, laughter hitching in my throat, dispelling the dread, or so I hoped. My hands trembled as I filled the coffee pot with water. I tried to focus, drowning out the churning unease, but the air grew thick. A bottle fell off a shelf. My breath hitched. I turned slowly, praying it was just clumsy luck. But the bottle lay shattered. Shards glinted like tiny stars on the floor. I knelt to clean it, every scraping sound echoing like a scream in my skull. My nerves danced around me, tighter than a noose. Then, a cold gust swept through the door, which I had clearly locked. My heart pounded. I jumped up, dropping the paper towel. I rushed to the door. It was wide open, an invitation to whatever was lurking outside. I could hear the wind howl like a banshee. I peered into the darkness. Something grabbed my ankle. Panic surged, and I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the shards of glass. "Hello?" I croaked, voice barely a whisper. I heard footsteps, muffled, shuffling, dragging. They weren't mine. The shadows twisted, rippling, almost alive. I held my breath, straining to see. There, just at the edge of the dim light, a figure loomed. I couldn't breathe. My vision narrowed, but my pulse thundered. It was just standing there, watching. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The figure loomed in the entrance, its silhouette distorted by the crappy fluorescent lights. I couldn't discern its features, but I could feel its gaze boring into me, cold, predatory. My mind raced, a cacophony of thoughts battling for dominance. I should have run. I should have screamed. But my legs were rooted to the ground, frozen in horror. "Who's there?" I managed to call out, my voice trembling. The figure didn't answer. Instead, it shuffled forward, dragging something behind it, a low, dragging sound that sent spikes of terror through me. I stumbled backwards, slamming into the coffee station, the beeping of the machine now a sinister symphony against the silence. As it stepped into the weak glow of the neon sign, the contour of its form became clearer. A person, or what used to be a person. Its clothes were tattered rags sticking to its emaciated frame, flesh hanging loosely like melted wax. The face that emerged was a ghastly mask of hollow eyes and split lips pulled back in a grotesque grimace. It opened its mouth, but no words came out, just a horrific, breathless rasp, like the sound of a dying animal. A twisted cacophony echoed from the bathroom, a door rattling violently. I could feel it in my bones that I wasn't alone, that perhaps the whispers had a deeper purpose. I forgot about the figure for a moment, equal parts intrigued and terrified. I edged toward the sound, my instincts screaming at me to run, but I was drawn to the dread like a moth to fire. The bathroom door slammed open, a force that shook the walls, sending a shower of dust and grime cascading through the dim space. I gasped as I caught sight of a reflection in the cracked mirror above the sink, a face distorted in terror, eyes wide, mouth pressed into a silent scream. It wasn't mine. That I jerked back, my heart hammering against my ribcage. As I turned away, the figure was closer now, impossibly so, its breath cold against my skin, reeking of something rotten. The glass crunching under my shoes felt feral, a warning that I was running out of time. Then came the rhythmic tapping, consistent and deliberate, coming from the pantry door, barely ajar. My breath hitched as I felt some darker presence simmer behind it, waiting, writhing, eager. Every instinct in me screamed to stay away. I was about to turn and flee, when the voice from the figure broke through the suffocating silence, a gurgling whisper that echoed off the walls, sending chills creeping into my bones. Join use. An unspeakable force clutched at my throat, constricting my air. I felt the insidious weight of dread crash down around me. I stumbled back to the cash register, fumbling for anything that might serve as protection. My fingers brushed against an old, rusted pepper spray. Perhaps it was better than nothing. With the light flickering ominously, I trained the can toward the door, ready to face whatever horrors awaited. The figure stepped closer, shadows swirling around its form, cloaking everything in a dark haze. I pressed the button, half expecting nothing to happen, but it let out a feeble hiss, not nearly enough to combat the terror bearing down on me. Suddenly, the lights flickered one last time before plunging the gas station into darkness. Panic shot through me as the soft buzzing of the fluorescent lights faded, leaving only the sound of my breath and the whispering shadows. Then, in the pitch black, someone grabbed my wrist. A startling laugh erupted around me, a cacophony of disembodied voices, each deeper and more sinister than the last. Just before the abyss swallowed me whole, the cold grip was gone, and I stumbled, my heart racing in my ears. Panic surged as I scrambled towards the door, desperate to escape, but the entrance slammed shut with a definitive thud. My heart sank as every exit light flickered out one by one. I was trapped, and then I realized I wasn't alone. The whispering began anew, echoing around me, rising to a crescendo. My eyes darted around as I caught glimpses of movement in the dark, a terrible, writhing mass of shadows hunched over, converging toward me. Join us forever. My breath caught in my throat again as the last shred of light flickered out. Then there was silence. Until I felt something cold brush against my neck. And it whispered softly, "We've been waiting for you." The weight of darkness wrapped itself tightly around me, squeezing the breath from my lungs. Panic surged as I strained my ears, trying to decipher the twisted chorus surrounding me. The whispering had transformed into a dreadful chant, echoing in a language I couldn't comprehend, yet its meaning fell on me like a stone, heavy and foreboding. "What do you want?" I finally cried out, my voice cracking, desperation clinging to my every word. Join us, they repeated, sounding eager, hungry. The more they chanted, the closer the shadows crawled. I could feel them grazing against me, like fingers moving against my skin, a promise of cold and torment. My legs instinctively began to move, but each step felt like wading through quicksand, dragging me down further into the abyss of their collective desire. I needed to fight, needed to scream, but the choked air quaked behind my frozen throat. Then, a flash of insight cut through the torment. The pantry. Without thinking, I lunged for the small area, my heart a pounding drum in my chest. My hand scrabbled against the door, and with a hard shove, it opened. I burst inside, fumbling in the dark, my fingers desperately brushing over canned goods and boxes, praying for anything that resembled a weapon or a way out. As I turned around to close the door, the shadows had not followed. They stopped short, as if a barrier existed between me and that dreadful collective. Panting, I pressed my back against cold metal shelving, feeling the slightest flicker of hope ignite within me. I rummaged in the pitch black, knocking over a tin can with a clatter that echoed like thunder in the unbearable silence. I bit my lip to stifle a whimper, but there was something else beyond the cacophony of shadows outside, something within the pantry that breathed and stirred. A low, guttural sound, like an animal caught in a snare. I faltered, dread sinking its claws into my spine. The shadows outside continued whispering, taunting me, but the sound behind me held a different timbre, a scrape, like nails against wood. I felt the cold prickle of sweat on my skin as I turned slowly, fearing what I might see. A pair of glowing eyes materialized in the corner, hovering just above the ground. They glimmered with a sickly light, reflecting my terror back at me. A shape was forming, a mass of shadows converging into something recognizable, once human, now grotesque. It spoke, its voice a gravelly rasp. "You can't hide from us." More voices came forth, a slew of countless whispers harmonizing into a single, chilling assertion. "You are ours." Forever. Without thinking, I turned and slammed my shoulder against the pantry door, desperate to escape, but it wouldn't budge. The clamoring in the darkness was growing louder, more agitated. I was trapped, crouched in a tiny space where horror was about to bleed, and desperation clawed at me, urging my mind to seek any possible escape. I felt the corners of the pantry's shelves could be scaled. Perhaps I could hoist myself high enough to reach the ventilation shaft above. The thought coursed with a rush of adrenaline. With trembling fingers, I began to climb, praying my instincts proved right. As I reached the top shelf, I could hear the ghastly figures pushing against the door behind me, frustrated by my last stand. The sounds crescendoed into furious pounding. My heart raced faster as I kicked at the vent cover, dislodging it with a shove, but each moment felt like a lifetime lost. Just as my fingers grazed the sharp edges of the opening, the pantry door burst open, black shapes poured through, coiling and writhing. I barely managed to keep my balance as the first of the shadows reached for me. I pulled myself into the shaft and scrambled within the narrow confines, but the shrieks of rage pursued me, echoing through the small space. Just as I hesitated, unsure of which direction to go, the churning darkness erupted from the pantry, spilling into the room with ferocious speed. I heard it screech my name over and over, a cacophony of lost souls demanding their prize. "Join us! Join us!" I could feel their cold, stifling breath close in, as if they were almost beneath me, waiting for the moment I would falter. With a primal shout, I pushed myself forward, each movement dangerously clumsy, awkward, dreading that one slip would send me back into their embrace. But as I wriggled deeper into the shaft, the grating metal beneath me shifted, and I felt an ominous rumble beneath the surface. The scream built up inside of me as the vent caved, and the darkness surged forward like a living wave, swallowing everything in its path. In that last, fleeting moment, catching a glimpse of the chaotic mass coiling toward me, 1,000 screams rising in a single unholy roar, I realized with horror that I was not escaping, that I was being drawn into them. And as the world faded into an all-consuming void, the last words I heard wrapped around my mind like a shroud. "Forever with us." I gasped awake, the bitter taste of terror still fresh on my tongue. I was no longer in the pantry. Instead, I found myself sprawled on the cracked linoleum floor of the gas station restroom. The stench of stale urine and mildew clawed at my senses, and I blinked against the harsh fluorescent light overhead, trying to piece together how I had escaped that suffocating darkness. Panic gripped me again as I rolled onto my back. Was it real? I whispered into the unsettling silence. Deep down, I knew it was. The pulse of dark energy still thrummed in my veins, and the bizarre whispers from the pantry echoed like a cursed mantra in the depths of my mind. Scrambling to my feet, I felt the cold grip of dread slide down my spine. The gas station, once a forgettable pit stop at the edge of rural obscurity, now felt like a labyrinth of despair. The walls seemed to close in on me, colored in sickly hues of yellow and green, casting an unsettling glow over everything. The flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows that danced ominously along the walls, elongating and curling with an unnatural fluidity. I stepped out of the restroom, my heart pounding like a drum. A voice rang out a soft, gentle tune that contrasted with the macabre setting. I froze, and an electric jolt shot through my body. It sounded familiar, a lullaby sung by a mother to soothe a restless child. As I turned toward the source, the gas station's back corner revealed an old radio, its speaker crackling with static. A shaking hand grabbed the radio, and I yanked the plug out. It fell silent, but the allure of the melody still lingered in the air, an echo that felt hauntingly alive. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog that had settled, and it was just a trick of the mind, a remnant of whatever horrors I had escaped. Or so I thought. That I backed away into the dimly lit shop area, and as I did, the air grew colder. The shelves were cluttered with cheap snacks and energy drinks, but they seemed to twist and writhe, the very objects mocking me as if they too had been touched by that primal darkness. My fingers tangled desperately through the assortment, searching for anything that could serve as a weapon, a broken bottle, a tin can, anything to defend myself against the echoes of that otherworldly chant. That's when I saw it. A figure loomed outside, barely illuminated by the flickering gas station sign, thin and shrouded in shadows. It was bathed in the pulsating red glow of the open sign. My breath hitched as I watched its elongated silhouette stretch and curve like a reflection in a funhouse mirror. "Help!" it rasped, its voice like nails scratching against glass that I couldn't tell if it was a man or something else entirely. The pale features were obscured beneath a cascade of dark hair, but its eyes glinted in the gloom, two hollow voids that simultaneously drew me in and repulsed me. I stumbled backward, every instinct screaming at me to run, but the dread rooted me to the spot. "Stay away!" I shouted, desperation circling my words. "Please let me in." The figure extended a trembling hand toward me, and I could see it was cold, almost lifeless. Each claw-like finger seemed to stretch impossibly long, beckoning me closer. Then another voice began to emanate from the shadows behind it, a multitude of whispers threading into life, woven together in a maddening tapestry. "Don't open that door, don't trust him." The gas station's walls shuddered with the weight of their collective dread, as if the building itself was alive and could sense the encroaching horror. My heart raced, the chant swallowing my thoughts whole as I fought with the instinct to turn away. Almost in slow motion, the door swung ajar for the entity that stood beyond it. The shadows roiled behind the figure, as something much larger shifted in the dark. It felt like a moment out of time, both excruciatingly long and agonizingly brief. "Help," the figure repeated, but there was something terrifyingly wrong with its tone, now flat and devoid of emotion, a mere echo of what had been. "Join us," the whispers commanded, intertwining his plea with their insidious chant, wrapping around my mind like a death grip. A sudden surge of adrenaline snapped me into action. I dashed toward the front of the station, the desperation clawing deeper into my throat. As I reached for the glass door, that's when I heard Ida shriek that broke the silence like glass shattering. That I turned just in time to see the doorway collapse in on itself, collapsing under the tremendous weight of darkness. I screamed, my fingers curled around the cold handle while a more grotesque shape began spilling out from behind the figure, blending into the shadows, dipped in malice and decay. And there, amid the horror, was a reflection of myself. Empty eyes stared back, twisted in a perverse mockery of my own form, reaching out as if to snatch my sanity along with my soul. Just then, the power flickered, and with it, the lights dimmed ominously. The entity, the figures, hushed into an impenetrable silence, as if waiting for me to make a choice. Outside, the darkness began to swirl and pulse, and I felt the very fabric of reality begin to tear. I was caught in their net, and the fragile barrier between this world and the next started to unravel. "Join us," and then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer at the gas station. The muted glow of fluorescent lights had been replaced by an oppressive darkness, thicker than the air in a dream or perhaps a nightmare. The relative warmth of the station was gone, leaving me shivering in a cold so deep it felt like a knife slicing through my flesh. The ground beneath me was uneven and soft, sinking slightly beneath my weight, as though I were standing in a thick layer of damp earth. I dared to grope around for some clue as to where I was or how I had ended up here, but all I found were remnants of old, decaying fragments of wood that crumbled like dried leaves in my hands. "Hello," I called out, my voice desperate and swallowed by the weight of the darkness. All I received in response was a dreadful echo, mocking and sinister, playing against my trembling heart. That it was then I noticed them shapes lingering just beyond the fringe of my perception. They appeared slowly, like whispers of smoke curling from a dying flame. Each figure was cloaked in shadow, indistinguishable from the darkness surrounding them. I staggered back instinctively, hitting something hard behind me. Laughter, sharp, uncaring, pierced through the quiet air, reverberating against the walls. It was a sound that sent rivulets of ice slithering down my spine. My breath quickened as I turned, heart racing, to face the unseen audience that seemed to emerge from the very shadows. "Why do you fight it?" a voice cackled, dripping with mockery. The tone slithered into the air like a serpent poised to strike. I shivered at how familiar it felt, as if it reverberated with memories I couldn't quite grasp. "Just let go," another whispered, softer, yet laced with a menace that clawed at my sanity. "We are here to take you home, home." The word sent a jolt of confusion through me. The more they spoke, the more tantalizing their words became, stirring something that felt like longing deep within my core. But in that instant, I remembered the gas station, the cold grip of dread, the malevolent figure begging for help, and the hellish whispers that sought to ensnare my mind. "No!" I screamed, every ounce of will pushing against the despair clawing at the edges of my mind. "I won't let you take me. Can you deny what you desire?" A voice crooned, the suggestion briefly peeling away the veil of fear. It felt like a grapple with 1,000 memories, each flickering in my mind like the lights in that accursed place. Without another thought, I took off running through the indeterminate darkness, the silhouettes flaring to life behind me. They followed, a cacophony of whispers swirling around me, teasing at my resolve. As I sprinted, the ground seemed to pulse beneath my feet, bending and shifting like a living thing, threatening to swallow me whole. Just when I thought I had outpaced them, I stumbled into what felt like a wall, solid yet deceptively grotesque in its texture. My fingertips brushed against something. Grotesque faces twisted in agony imprinted into a surface that felt wrong, fleshy and warm, a living barrier that writhed beneath my touch. "Turn back," they echoed, each syllable sharp as glass. "Turn back while you still can." Glancing back, I felt a rush of cold terror. Those shadows I had sought to evade were now visible, their grotesque forms merging and pulsing into new shapes. No longer characters hidden in the gloom, they had come together, creating a monstrous amalgamation that exuded a haunting sway, twisting and undulating as though it possessed a life of its own. That I fought against the horror clawing at my mind, despair threatening to consume my thoughts. Their forms altered, becoming stronger, more definitive. I pressed myself against the wall, desperate for an escape. Noise erupted all around me, cries echoing into an anguished symphony, beckoning me back. Clutched by dread, I felt the wall behind me bend and yield, revealing a dim light that cut the darkness. A door loomed faintly in the distance, flickering like a flame in the grip of the wind. That if I could just reach it. But as I turned to run, the shadowed figures began to merge into a single entity, their many eyes glinting with a terrible hunger, their mouths stretching into impossible grins, exposing rows of jagged teeth that whispered my name. "Choose!" they shrieked, the symphony of madness crescendoing. "Join us, become one with the night, or venture forward into the unknown." I forced my legs to move, each step feeling heavier as the darkness stretched towards me, tendrils snaking between my feet, wrapping around my ankles with a pull that felt inescapable. The door was closer now, yet an awareness flickered at the back of my mind. The allure of the shadows beckoned me with promises that gnawed at my senses. I could feel what felt like past lives stirring beneath the surface, attempting to interweave into my existence. Desperation clawed in my chest as I reached the door. I pressed my palm against its surface, fighting against the layers of fear and temptation weighing on my conscience. This would lead me to the truth. Get out, escape. But then the whispers shifted into laughter, a sound that sliced through my resolve like a sharp blade. "Open it, if you dare." With one final primal scream, I flung the door open, and in that terrifying moment, reality collapsed around me, plunging me into an infinite abyss. Or perhaps it was just the beginning. The door swung wide open, but instead of relief, I was met with a dizzying void that felt alive. My eyes strained to make sense of the nothingness before me. It was a realm where shadows danced peculiarly, and silence churned with the promise of dread. I was suspended, caught between the haunting world I had fled and the unnameable terror that lay beyond the threshold that I took a hesitant step forward, the ground beneath my feet morphing into an unstable surface that felt like vapor. A gust of wind swept through, chilling my bones and carrying with it a cacophony of whispers that scattered like autumn leaves, slipping through my fingers if I tried to grasp them. They coiled around me, weaving through my thoughts, taunting my very essence. "Come play with us," the voices sang, their synchronized harmony quaint yet horrifying. It was an invitation veiled in malice, promising comfort in exchange for surrender, a price I wasn't willing to pay. I gritted my teeth, fighting against the sheer pull of their enchanting menace that I felt the presence from the gas station, the figure with the hollow eyes creeping into my mind, pulling strings of memories I couldn't fully remember. Like echoes of screams caught in the walls of time, I felt their intensity surge, pushing against the fragile barriers of my sanity. Another gust of wind, louder this time, whipped my hair back as I plunged further into the void, succumbing to a disorienting shift. The air thickened, morphing into a tangible darkness that wrapped around me like a shroud. Shapes began to emerge, shadowy silhouettes of human figures adorned with elongated limbs and grotesque features, their faces obscured but their intentions all too clear that I turned to flee, heart pounding with an instinctive, primal terror. But where to? Each direction around me seemed to spin into a disorienting horizon of blackness, closing in tighter with every frantic step. Behind the whirlpool of shadows, the laughter continued, low and mocking, swelling to engulf me in a haunting symphony of despair. And then, it stopped. A heavy silence blanketed my surroundings, feeling charged and unnatural. My breath hitched in my throat, and for a moment, the cacophony of shadow vanished, leaving only a tranquil emptiness. I dared to hope, a fleeting thought soaking in fragile relief, but then a voice, a whisper that wormed its way through the stillness. Do you remember, dear friend? It isn't the darkness that haunts you, it's what you carry within. I froze, recognition blooming dreadfully. It was a tone I knew too well, dripping with familiarity because it was my own. The realization clawed at my insides, the darkest shadows were not just out there waiting, they were within me. As the awareness sank in, a torrent of visions flooded my mind, memories of hands reaching out for help, faces twisted in fear and desperation, all my forgotten sins swirling back to the surface. "Join us, want you?" A chorus of voices chimed now, soft but insistent, slithering with longing. "We are not the shadows you are. Embrace it." My heart shattered with the weight of truth. It was my own darkness that beckoned, a deep well of guilt and regret that held me captive. And it was the shadows that showed me who I really was, afraid, fragile soul haunted by every face I had turned away. Heat surged through my veins, and with it, a spark of defiance ignited. I could not succumb to the siren call of despair. I was still here, I had the power to choose. Gathering every ounce of strength, I focused on the memory of the gas station, the warmth of its light, the echo of helplessness, and took a deep breath. I had the ability to fight the darkness. An explosive surge of defiance flooded through me, pushing back against the shadow's grip. Suddenly, the darkness roared in fury, piercing with glacial coldness. The shapes lost their formless quality, becoming monstrous again, fangs bared and eyes gleaming with resentment. The laughter returned, now twisted into howls of anger that reverberated in my bones. A pair of eyes, luminous and consuming, pierced through the dark, reflecting anguish, thrilling with malice, bearing witness not to who I was but what I had become. "Face it. Transform." They screamed, the eldritch sound clawing at my sanity, and then I realized, the shadows weren't just cunning entities. They were pieces of me, fragments of my soul I had buried deep, clashing with the ghostly remnants of other screams of the past, melding into a horrific overture. The ground beneath me cracked, opening a yawning mouth that threatened to swallow me whole. I gripped my head, everything dissolved into chaos as I fell, the void tearing at fragments of reality. The grotesque figures gathered closer, their smiles stretching wider, eyes glinting with insatiable hunger. "Embrace it. Give in." They shrieked as the abyss enveloped me, but through the din, I heard a different voice, a quiet whisper fighting against the despair. Remember who you are, and with that whisper echoing in my heart, I fell deeper into the unfathomable darkness, teetering on the precipice of an unimaginable truth, ready to confront the remnants of my past, but the darkness shifted again, rippling like a living thing, pinning me down as I slipped under it. I could only scream a name I could barely hear as I was consumed by shadows, sensing that I was no longer alone. As my scream shattered into the silence, the abyss consumed me, not with a rush but a suffocating embrace that turned my limbs to lead. The whispers melded together in a chaotic symphony, each note resonating with a harrowing familiarity that crawled under my skin. Remember who you are, slipped away like smoke, leaving only a desolate echo in its wake. Suddenly, the ground morphed beneath me into a fractured landscape, a patchwork of my memories, twisted and malicious. I stumbled past jagged craters and splintering trees that looked eager to ensnare me in their embrace. They mirrored my dread. Each fragment of my psyche was a reflection gone awry, darkened by the secrets I carried. Ahead, I glimpsed a flicker of light amid the darkness, a recollection of the gas station illuminated against the night in the mundane hours. The glow seemed like a beacon of hope, but the figures flitting in and out of the shadows warned against it, their eyes alight with hunger, seductive yet horrifying. That I lurched forward, propelled by desperation. But the further I ran into the depths of the void, the farther the light retreated, as if mocking my efforts. The air grew heavy with sorrow, and I stumbled over the remnants of forgotten lives, tattered clothing, broken toys, and shattered memories that whispered their mournful tales. I glimpsed the faces of those lost, some contorted in agony, others coldly indifferent, but all potent reminders of my failings. Why do you run from us? A voice echoed, sending shivers racing down my spine. It was the gas station attendant, his face obscured by shadow yet unmistakable. You cannot escape what you've done. That I met his gaze, paralyzed by a blend of recognition and despair. I didn't mean to, I stuttered, a plea spilling from my lips, futile in the oppressive atmosphere that smothered me. Mean to what? He taunted, the flicker of his sinister smile glinting off the darkness. To forget? To leave? Or to abandon them? His voice dripped with bitterness, entwined with the memories of those I failed to save. Each word struck me like a lash, searing into the fabric of my soul. I pressed my palms against my temples, trying to block out the fractured memories that threatened to overwhelm me. Faces flashed before my eyes, death certificates, pleas for help, and the panicked looks of those who begged for rescue but fell through the cracks I created. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. The very earth beneath me bucked, spitting forth grotesque shapes that spiraled up like ghostly hands reaching for me. I was yanked from the ground, a helpless marionette now entangled in unseen strings. Join us. Join the eternal cycle. The shapes chanted, their voices a chilling chorus that blended with the screams of the damned. That I was tossed into a swirling vortex, the crushing strength of despair pulling me apart at the seams. From the corners of the maelstrom, flickers of my various selves darted in and out, each one engulfed by the shadows, their screams mingling with my own. Let them go. I shouted, a defiant shout against an insurmountable tide, but the shadows enveloped my resistance, dragging me deeper into their domain. I felt the air thin, the reality around me warping into a grotesque display of my nightmares. Beneath the whirlpool of darkness, silhouettes emerged, and in their midst, the gas station flickered in and out of existence, the familiar glow now twisted, suffused with malevolence. And then I knew I could not escape the confines of my own soul, tainted by betrayal and lost chances. The gas station wasn't merely a place, it was a crucible for all my hidden sins, where shadows were born from regret and fear, feeding on despair. But as the figures surrounded me, their faces reflecting a twisted amusement, something within me ignited. This wasn't just a reckoning, it was a chance to confront my demons, to pierce through the veil of torment that shrouded me. With a desperate resolve, I raised my voice above the discord, channeling every fragment of my collected rage. I will face my darkness. The laughter abruptly halted, silence wrapping around me like a shroud, pressing with a slick and oppressive weight. I felt the shadows waver, hesitating at the edge of confrontation, and then the gas station erupted into clarity. The flickering light solidified, seizing the gaze of the shadows. They recoiled, hissing, as tendrils of light erupted from my heart, worming through the crevices of despair and illuminating the void. Release them. I cried, knowing that with each word, I summoned strength against the fears that had haunted me, but before I could register the shift, a figure burst from the darkness at my side, an apparition, flickering, distorted, yet achingly familiar. I turned, eyes widening in horror and recognition. "Help me," they rasped, a face I never wanted to see again, twisted in agony. "You have to let me go and you have to come back." As the shadows surged forward with renewed ferocity, I was torn between lingering ghosts and an impending darkness so profound that I could scarcely breathe. "Who do you want to save?" The figure's voice trembled just as the shadows lunged toward me once more, eager to pull me into their endless abyss. With each pounding heartbeat, I realized my worst nightmare had come true. I was not being consumed by the shadows, that I was becoming one of them. The world around me shattered into kaleidoscopic fragments, tearing, stretching, wrestling with a reality too grotesque to endure. As I stood hand in hand with my past, the ground cracked, revealing a churning pit of shadows spiraling beneath us. The gas station flickered agonizingly, trapped between time and torment, a cruel mockery of safety. "Please," I heard myself plead, the figure beside me, my closest betrayal, groaning in despair. I could see his lips move, feel the pulse of his pain dancing through the very fabric of my existence. The tendrils of the shadows recoiled, each dark entity pulsing with a sort of hungry anticipation, their whispers now merging into a cacophony of despair. "You have to choose," the apparition begged, his face twisting in an agony that mirrored mine. That I turned back to the darkness, feeling it seep into the cracks around me, threatening to swallow us whole. "I won't leave you," I screamed, each word laced with conviction that felt as brittle as glass, teetering on the brink of shattering. But the shadows tensed, their whispers sharp, urgent, like jagged glass cutting through the stillness. In that moment, a woman's voice broke through the onslaught. "Help us!" It fluttered over the darkness like a candle's flame fighting a storm, igniting the corner of my mind that had always felt astray. I squinted into the gloom, and out stepped another figure, indistinct yet cloaked in familiarity. I narrowed my eyes, squinting into the dark fog that obscured her visage. "Mom!" I gasped, scarcely believing my own words. "Don't listen to them," she rasped, her voice trembling with fear. The shadows recoiled in a manner that left me breathless, as though they could sense the fear that enveloped her. "They want you to join them. You know their truth, you know what they'll do." Energy rippled through me, raw and relentless as the shadows pulsated with annoyance. Their shrill cacophony grew louder, a sound that clawed at my sanity, wanting nothing more than to engulf me entirely. The gas station, that pitiful shell of memories, stood on the precipice of reality, flickering erratically like the dying flame of a candle caught in a tempest. "Why are you here?" My heart hammered in my chest, splitting between the faces etched painfully in my mind. "Me ghosts. To save you," the figure whispered, despair crackling in the air. "But you must remember it was all your fault," she continued, eyes narrowing. "If it weren't for you, I'd be alive. They were counting on you." The accusation shattered whatever steadfast resolve I had clung to, the weight of guilt bearing down on my shoulders, twisting my insides into a nauseous knot. "No." I choked, forced to confront the truth that churned beneath the surface of my turmoil. "I couldn't save you, then you will be punished. Just like them." The shadows howled, growing bolder, their hunger palpable. They surged forth, desperate to consume my emotional turmoil, challenging my fragile psyche. The gas station flickered ominously, torn between merging realities as a tempest of spectral faces swirled, marking me with their dread. They echoed with laughter, a symphony of derision that filled the void, suffocating hope beneath their relentless tide. "Join us." The shadows screeched, a cruel collective, urging me to embrace the inevitability of my fate. "Stop!" I shouted, panic rising like bile in my throat, struggling to wield my voice against the swell of darkness. "You can't take me. You won't take anything from me." In response, the shadows recoiled momentarily, restless agony etched into their fluid forms. But the momentary respite was an illusion, and within moments, they surged forth, a tide of despair that drowned my dreams. It was in that moment of desperation that I heard her voice again, me mother's growing fainter. "You have to choose, my love. It is the only way to go free." The spectral figures converged once more, dragging the weight of remorse and regret into a frantic, spiraling whirlpool. The ground above cracked even more, a gaping maw of darkness inviting me willingly into the depths of my sins that I was torn in an agonizing moment of choice. I could feel the shadow behind me, its claw-like whispers echoing against my spine. Be one of us. We can protect you, make you forget, no. I roared, both to the dark and to myself, my mind racing. I won't let you take me. As shadows lunged forward, their outstretched hands poised to devour, I lunged backward, plunging into the swirling chaos. But at that final moment, a dark realization dawned upon me: who would I bring with me? With everything screaming around meth agony of the long-lost faces, the darkness calling for my surrender, I understood the consequence of my choice. I was either going to drag those I loved into oblivion with me, or abandon them to their pain. Just as the darkness drew close, I halted. I looked toward the gas station, now a beacon of fractured hope. Realizing the truth hit me like a blow. The only escape was to confront the very thing I most feared, and so I screamed their names into the void. I won't let you all suffer any longer. But as the shadowy tendrils reached for me, ready to obscure the final shred of light, a new presence surged forth, wrapping around me like a cloak. The final entity made itself known among the chaos. Choice, it resonated, a low, earth-shattering tone, is a luxury you no longer have. And before I could even comprehend it, the hands of shadows coalesced around me, their grip as unyielding as fate itself. The executioner whispered as I disappeared into the veil of night, "Welcome to your new life." The world twisted around me as I unraveled into the void, every gasp echoing with the weight of countless regrets and distant memories. The light that once illuminated my mind flickered, and the shadows surged, hungry and spirited, eager to devour my resolve. As they pulled me into their grasp, I felt a cold shiver break over my skin, reminiscent of the frigid New Hampshire winters I once cherished and now loathed. When I re-emerged, I wasn't standing. Instead, I felt myself being dragged across a foreign landscape, one that was part dream and part nightmare, plagued by the heavy scent of decay and something metallic that tinged my senses. Horrifying specters, their mournful faces lit dimly by an otherworldly glow, shrieked and sighed, their forms flowing like liquid night, merging and separating before my dazed eyes. I struggled against the current that whisked me through this dread-soaked realm, but with every attempt, the shadows that held me tightened their grip. A familiar sound reached my ears, a faint, sickening crunch, as though bone crumbled beneath heavy stomping. Through the writhing mass of blackness, a figure emerged, staggering toward me like a puppet with strings cut. Its head hung low, matted hair cloaking its face, obscuring any semblance of human features. But when it raised its head, the sight blossomed terror in my chest. It was not my mother, not directly, but rather an echo of her, a creature twisted by the weight of my horrors and guilt. Her eyes glowed like pale embers, shimmering and infernal, as if each blink held the memories of 1,000 souls trapped in anguish. She smiled, wide and sinister, her lips parting in a rictus that seemed impossibly familiar. "Look at what we've become, my love," she whispered, the words slithering into my very fiber. "We are bound, now and always." Just like them, the shadows screamed their jagged chorus in unison, resonating with my maternal ghost's haunting image. Each wail was a reminder of every decision I had wished to erase, and as I stepped back, I realized the ground beneath me shifted treacherously. Swirling darkness threatened to consume not only her but everything I had held dear. "I thought I could save you," I cried, my voice cracking in desperation, but the entity merely giggled, an unsettling sound that echoed through the air like broken glass. "Oh, but darling, saving me implies you understood what you were up against. Did you ever think they wanted yourself? Look at who you brought with you, standing now at the brink." As if my guilt had become physical, tendrils of blackness snaked away from her and extended toward the shadows swirling in the periphery. Horror seeped into my bones as I realized these were not mere figments of my thoughts. No, they were phantoms infused with the souls of those I had lost, mangled and writhing in the same space where I now found myself trapped. "Everything's connected," she breathed, her voice pulling me deeper into despair. "They suffer as you do. Just listen to their cries. Join us." The shrieks, unintelligible yet piercing, resonated within me as I spun in circles, trying to escape the suffocating madness overwhelming my senses. Shadows poured forth from the ground, creeping closer, faces merging with every ounce of regret, haunting every corner of my mind with sheer malice. Suddenly, I found myself near a fissure in the ground, a gaping maw of darkness that seemed to pulse and breathe. Straining to distinguish reality from the fevered hallucinations that bled together, I grazed the edges of consciousness that whispered, "Let go, give in." Oh! I yelled, clenching my fists, willing myself not to sink into that gaping void. "You won't have me. I won't join you," but instinctively, the shadows lunged forward. A claw-like hand shot out, sharp with despair, grabbing at my throat. As the terrifying grip tightened, a vision burst into my mind, a glimpse of my gas station, the fluorescent lights flickering wildly, and the walls echoing with the laughter of the damned. Among this confusion, an image of the old clock behind the counter flickered to life, a memory I hadn't acknowledged in the midst of chaos. It stood frozen at midnight, each tick of the hand representing the countless hours I spent wrestling with the spectral presence that haunted the gas station. That clock wasn't just time, it was a tether to them, the lost souls I had encountered through my shift, trapped in their despair. "Save us," the specters whispered, their aching pulse synchronized with my heartbeat, but the ghostly figure of my mother stepped forward at that moment, her fingers reaching through the dark. "You have a choice. Remember what keeps them alive." Her voice, now more solid, swept away the darkness momentarily, providing a chance of clarity. But before I could respond, the shadows surged back greater in intensity, hungrier than before, mocking my hope that I stumbled, my thinking fragmented as my mother's specter met those of the shadows, energy crackling violently through the air. A darkness didn't just stand between us, it now felt as if the abyss realized my indecision, feeding its hunger, and suddenly, I knew choices come at a cost. That as the shadows bared their fangs, hollow eyes glimmering with malevolence, I caught a glimpse of something beneath their howling chaos, a faint light that beckoned. Did it lead to salvation or damnation? Choose now. The echoing voices chanted. Just as I steadied my resolve with one final breath, one unbearable thought ruptured within the storm of agony: what if their screams could offer a way out? My mother seized the moment. "Don't!" Yet, as I reached out toward the light, an earthquake unfurled beneath me, chasms of shadow elongating into the abyss. And in that cataclysmic moment, as shadows surged like a tidal wave, I saw figures rising from the depths, faces I knew and loved from the living and the long lost, converging upon me, grasping, suffocating, pulling me back into the darkness. "Save us!" they screamed. The world began to dim once again, swirling into an unfathomable abyss, and as my fingers brushed the beckoning light, a chilling realization pierced my heart, cutting deeper than any knife. Maybe the choice had never been mine to make at all. And with that chilling thought, the ground beneath me crumbled away, plunging me into an unending void, darkness engulfing my scream, a scream that echoed throughout the realms, carrying the weight of my choices. As I plummeted into the abyss, the sensation of falling stretched into an eternity. I felt weightless, suspended in madness, while the memories of my life flickered in and out like the gas station's outdated neon sign, each one brighter than the last, filled with laughter now tainted by shadows. I couldn't grasp the reality of what awaited me below. I could feel the darkness wrap around me, a caress that screamed both comfort and despair. Where shadows danced in my psyche, the pull of the abyss soared higher, a lingering invite to join the chorus of anguish that echoed through the air. That moment, I found myself aware of everything I had locked away, every flicker of guilt chasing me toward this irrevocable conclusion. I pictured the gas station, that hell spawned of memories and retribution, a grisly reminder of a name I could never forget, vanished. I drifted further into the depths, the gas station morphing around my consciousness, pulsing in tempo with the darkness that whispered back to me, reminding me of my failures, and even deeper, dread crawled from somewhere I couldn't comprehend, holding my heart in its grasp. I glimpsed faces contorted by fear, twisted by the anguish I had inadvertently wrought upon them. Each ghostly figure was a testament to my choices, the lives I had left broken in the wake of my own despair. Was this how it all ended? Was every shadow a piece of someone I had failed to save, now bound to share their eternal woe in the depths of my conscience? Suddenly, a flash illuminated my surroundings, and I saw it, a swirling vortex of mist and lost souls pulling away from me, forming a silhouette. A shape took form among the dark tendrils, emerging from the mass. It was a figure, clad in rags, its face indistinguishable, but as it stepped closer, I felt that familiar chill crawl up my spine. The hollow eyes glinted, and suddenly, I recognized that haunting grin. It was the figure from the station, the one that had beckoned me with hollow whispers, the one that had seduced my conscious mind into the very depths of despair. "Welcome back," it rasped, the words slithering like venom into my core. Its voice was dripping with malice and familiarity, like the last remnants of daylight bridging the gap to night. "Why are you still here?" I gasped, my voice echoing against the walls of this ceaseless void. "What do you want?" its hollow laughter echoed, swirling the shadows around me into a tempest. "I am but a reflection of all that you wish to deny, your darkest regrets fused into a tapestry of agony you cannot escape. Everyone you forsook is here with me, lingering in the limbo of your conscience. We are united in your darkness. No. I shouted, my voice rallying against the horror surrounding me. "You can't have me. You won't take them." Just then, amidst the havoc swirling around me, the figures began to emerge, faces entwined with sorrow. Each one wore a mask of betrayal, sorrowful eyes hollowed like broken vessels. They glided toward me, each face illuminating the truth that had haunted my nightmares. "Look at us," they whispered in a chorus, their voices a sickly harmony that wrapped around my soul. "You never saved us. You let us slip away." A piercing pain rushed through me, I struggled against their grasp. I tried. I cried defiantly, though my voice quavered. "I wanted to save you, but you didn't." The shadows tightened around my throat, the choking weight of regret held me like a vice. "And now you must decide: join us, or forsake us forever." The darkness whooshed and whipped around me, and I staggered, untethered among the wailing specters that danced with torment. Help! I just wanted to escape. The gas station flashed before my eyes once more, each flickering memory refracted in pure agony. But weaving in and out of the chaos, a sharp glimmer of hope emerged. My mother's voice, crystal clear, echoed through the shadows, her illumination cutting through their predatory advances. "You have the choice to end this, my love. You were never meant to carry their burdens alone." With a gasp, I felt my resolve reignite. What if breaking away didn't mean abandoning them but finding a way to lift their weight from my soul? With a heartbeat fueled by determination, I yelled, "You won't take me. You are nothing but echoes in my mind," the voices shrieked, escalating into a furious choir. "Then choose. Surrender or save us." As the turmoil spiraled deeper, I knelt, tears streaming down my face, calling upon every soul I had ever tried to shield myself from. "I'm sorry. I wish I could turn back time. I never meant to forget you." Light cracked through the suffocating darkness, radiating clarity as it erupted from my core. I gripped my heart, feeling the pain escape as sweetness clashed against the bitter shadows. "Join me instead. Together, we will face this forever." The shadows recoiled, swirling with anguish before collapsing in on themselves as I summoned the light, banishing the despair with an intensity one had never known. One by one, the spectral faces began to dissolve and dissipate, their anguished cries morphing into whispers of gratitude, liberation settling upon them. But as the last voice wavered, one figure lingered, my own reflection, eyes shimmering with an otherworldly gleam. "Thank you," it murmured, mirroring the gratitude of the others. "You found what was lost." And then I fell. Not into darkness, but into the light. When I opened my eyes, the fluorescent lights of the gas station flickered above, glaring and bright, like beacons piercing through the fog. I was back, surrounded by familiar sights, sounds, and echoes. And yet, the weight lingered, gnawing at meth realization that the shadows were not just entities to exorcise but aspects of my very soul. The darkness would always be there, screaming and begging, a whisper in the back of my mind reminding me of those I had lost. A split second of forgetfulness would beckon them back, forever tethered to me, the reminders of my greatest mistakes. The gas station now continued as a haunting reminder of the choices I'd made and those I still had yet to confront. And every night, as I stood beneath the flickering lights, I waited not to be consumed, but prepared. Because the darkness would always linger, but this time, I was no longer afraid of it. After all, the shadows had become part of me, their names echoed through the winds as I whispered into the night, "You are never truly gone." One last thought twisted in my mind as the deli's chime echoed behind me. Forever, they would be with me, and that was exactly how it should be.